We will, I will answer that question for you, Michelle, since we are here and what I know. And again, this is a discussion group. So if anyone else, Dan, if you want to pop in or, Suzanne, or we can all give our thoughts on stuff. This isn't a thing where I just talk all the time. I want you guys to give as well. So modern day druids, from what I know about modern day druids, is there is an order that it is a current practicing order that is really based out of the UK, but there are a lot that are in other places around the world, including the US. There is a chapter in Chicago that I met someone from, but I am not affiliated with it. And there is a process that they go through kind of the same way the Druids did back in ancient times to kind of get in step with things that they kind of go into to, go up the hierarchy, I guess I would call it, or the understanding more of the wisdom that to kind of learn from that. I know there's a website you can go to and they will give you information about it. It was probably close to 10 years ago that I was on that site and read through it. There is information out there about modern day for and how it connects with what the ancient wisdoms were. That's where it gets a little from my perspective, I will say, because someone who is part of the order may have very different belief system, but from my knowledge and from what the my Druid collective has told me is that they utilize some of the similar concepts. So the Druids as a sect, I will say, didn't they kind of died out through a certain amount of time, but there is still those practices that were still put into play. There was still those songs that were passed on, that knowledge that was passed on. You can go back and look into ancient textbooks and find out about their Caesar. Julius Caesar talks a lot about them. So you can find them in the history books, although it's not going to be directly from them, because as we know, they didn't write anything down. Everything was given through song and through message and from there. So, but from what they're telling me now, they're telling me that they were here to shift the world, and that yes, some of the ways they're doing it now are similar, but it's not done within the same energy and within the same way because the Druids back in ancient times were very much healers. They were very much connected to healing and earth and herbalism and all of those kinds of ways of life. And they really wanted to live in that way. And now through modern times, they believe it could just be the way modern world works. Um, but they're saying it's similar, but yet it's not exact. But they said, what is exact? You know how how Buddhism was practiced back then is very different than it is now. How Catholicism was practiced is very different than it is now. So it has molded and it has changed. So it's not pure from where the ancient times were, but it is somewhat um, consistent within the thought process.
Hmm.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I have some follow-up.
Sure.
If you, okay. So how does one become a modern druid?
So if you go to their website, there is a hierarchy of, I believe it's classes you take, rituals you do.
Oh,
It's
okay.
more of a process, like an initiation process is what I would call it. Um, that you can go through this process of becoming one. So
Okay. I,
yes,
I didn't know if it was something that would be inherent in a person, or and maybe it is.
yeah.
But you do get some education along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Oh,
something where like I know that the group in Chicago that got together, they would get together every solstice, every equinox. They kind of followed that timeline that was there. And so they really set kind of that same structure. I did not attend anything, so I don't know of it. I did look into what it was, and it didn't have a calling for me. But I know it is very grounded in what they do. So, yeah, if you just Google like I think it's called Order of the Druid or Bard Order of the Druid or if you Google enough of it and kind of push it towards like UK, you'll be able to find some stuff online that will their main you might even be able to Google like the Chicago chapter and you can kind of find some of their stuff that they do and that's out there. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, yeah, so Suzanne, were you able to figure out mute? I know you have a topic in your head. You always do.
Oh, wow. That was, we were talking last week, a couple of weeks ago, that I was not supposed to use my voice. Yeah, it did not want me to talk, obviously.
I was
But I'm Suzanne. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say we just need to have you hear more. I think was the point of that.
I'm Suzanne, and I'm in New York. And what else did you want to know?
What topics do you have? Yeah, any questions?
Oh, uh, Katie, you should know that. It's past lives
Yes.
right now. It's very much on my mind.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right, well, let's jump into past lives then. Is a great thing to talk about. So, what do you, I'll let you guys kind of talk first. What do you guys think of past lives? How do you connect in with them? And then I'll give you all my 12 cents as to what I do or how it works.
Well,
Well,
I'll go.
okay.
Sorry, Michelle.
Go right
Um,
ahead, please.
at first I thought past lives was people talk about karma, and I always thought that was a negative thing. But the more I get into it, I realize it's not a negative thing. But so it was karma as negative and coming back to fix that karma.
Mhm.
But now what I'm starting to understand, actually, I can't say what I'm slowly starting to understand, but I don't have a full understanding of what it really
Mhm.
means.
Yeah.
But I do believe we've had many lives,
Okay.
and not just here,
Hmm.
everywhere, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I gotta say about that.
All right. Sounds good. Michelle, what did you have to add?
Uh, what I understand about past lives is some of the same sort of topics that Suzanne had made, that uh, things that we have learned or that we haven't learned in the past, we are given those opportunities to learn in the next lives,
Mhm.
in the next chapters, I think, of the soul. And um, there is an astrologer and a medium teacher that has this recording that you can listen to, and she has these prompts, and you think about these things and you're in this meditative state. And one time I was doing that, and I had come upon an experience where um, possibly that one of my past lives was one of it was a female, and I had died during childbirth. And that was pretty interesting. And I think it was like a Victorian era. I'm not sure, but the surroundings of the walls that I remember or that had come to me were of that um, kind of design.
Okay.
And so um, and that kind of rang true in a way, in that because I have this, I've always had this saying that um, about having a baby.
Mm,
And that was always so weird. That was always so weird. And now, when I could piece those two together about this, having a baby, I'm going to have a baby. Um, it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe those two are related. So, but I don't know anything more than that, given past lives.
yeah. That's really cool that you had that experience that came to you during that. Yeah. I always say, past lives will come to us when there's something we need to understand from it or learn from it. If you go digging in the closet for a past life that maybe you're not supposed to know about yet, is when you can uncover some things that maybe you didn't want to know about or have to deal with. So, you know, they're they're fun to know and interesting to see, but when we dig into it, we're living in the past, and it's about living in the present, learning from the past, living in the present, and really being able to shift on and move on from there. So that's a really good aspect of it as well. So yeah, Dan, do you have any thoughts on past lives before I give my 4 cents?
No, so very interesting topic. I'm glad you guys brought this up. So my whole thing is always wanting to understand how it works.
Hmm.
So from what I understand, past lives really are everything's happening here and now. So you say past, but it's really everything's here and now. So we're living multiple lives at the same time, essentially. Which, again, trying to wrap your mind around that is a little difficult.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's your experiences as a soul, right? So from what I understand is that we're here to, I guess, learn and continue to grow as a soul, right? So these lives that we're living is to help enhance ourselves. So I guess, I mean, I had one experience where I was regressed, and I found myself in a Middle East as a carpenter, and at that time, my at that time wife committed suicide. So again, why that came to me in a regression, I have no idea. So I've yet to figure that out. But it's essentially it's to teach me something, which again, that's the journey I'm on, just to continue to understand how it works. But really, everything past life I've ever learned from is from Dolores Cannon, which is a fascinating book that you haven't had a chance to read.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got some really cool stuff out there. And there's a lot of stuff on past lives. So I loved all of your guys' takes on it. They're all fairly similar. So, my take on past lives is that, we've had millions of them, I will say. And we come into them because we choose a life and we kind of come in going, okay, what are our gifts? What do we want to learn? What are we want to experience? Who are going to be our parents? Who's going to be our siblings? We kind of have everything laid out. Like, okay, this is what we're going to go. This is what I want to happen, kind of like a plan. And we know on Earth that there's free will, so plans necessarily don't happen the way we plan them out. But it is good for where we come in with that way of, okay, this is what we want to learn and experience. So we come in and we either do that or we do not do that, or we do a combination of it. Maybe we check a few boxes but not all the boxes. Maybe we don't lean into our gifts because we get stuck, taking over the family farm or the family business, and we're not able to explore our love of music or whatever it is that soul came in to do. And so we're coming in with those things. And so when we leave a lifetime, we then kind of go back and look back and go, okay, what did I accomplish? What did I not accomplish? What did I maybe pick up that I need to learn again or that I need to learn all over because there is karma? Maybe I made some bad free will decisions and was really mean to my sibling that I had wasn't part of my path. So there's all those things that kind of add up. And so when we come in the next lifetime, we might go, okay, maybe I want to work on one of those things. Maybe I want to work on two of those things. Maybe I want to push all that to the side and focus on something totally different. Kind of like when you get home when you were a kid and got home from school with all your homework. It's like, what do I tackle first? Part of you is like, well, this is going to be easy, so I'm going to do this first. But then you're like, but this is a huge project and I have all my energy now, so let me work on this first. So it's kind of the same thing. And sometimes you get home from school and you're like, I'm not doing any homework tonight. It's Friday. I'll deal with it Sunday night. Maybe you're that type of kid. And so for my belief structure, past lives are very similar. And we've all had really good past lives. We've all had very bad past lives, and we've all played certain parts in certain lifetimes. Where, you may have been the person that, you know, um, stole a blanket from a person who was homeless. And you go, wow, that was really awful of me. But maybe you signed up with them to play that part. They wanted to experience what truly having nothing felt like. And maybe you said, you made an agreement with them. I will take that blanket away from you because that is what you want to experience, to feel fully without anything. And it may not have created karma, or you may have done it. It wasn't part of an agreement, and now you've created karma of having something taken away from you. Um, so it's all very I would say nothing is black and white, and it's all very dependent upon what your agreements are, what your contracts are, what maybe happened in another lifetime. So maybe, for instance, you have, you come in and you've got a friend at school that you guys just get into major fights. You just can't stand each other. And your parents are like, get along, you'll be fine. You're 5. And you're just like, I don't like that kid. I don't like him. From the moment you met them on the playground, you're like, I don't like him. Maybe that comes from a past life where you guys had a very negative experience. The same way I know where I have certain friends that I met them and I'm like, I feel like I've known you for my whole life. And then we, can go 4 or 5 months and not talk, and then we just pick up the next day. And, we just have that. And I know I've had past lives with them because we have this such a strong connection here that goes deeper than just this lifetime. And so there's that kind of piece too. So does that kind of give you guys an idea of how the lifetimes are potentially structured before I kind of go into why we dig into them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So from there, then, when you come into a lifetime, then, and I use this example a lot. This is kind of like the unknown Disney movie of the world, but have you guys ever seen the movie Soul? It was animated,
Hmm.
came out during COVID. Okay, you have Michelle. Okay.
Yes.
It is one of the most underrated movies from my perspective because it touches on such a high level consciousness topics, and there's still the fun part, but it's all about this little soul who needs to come in, and he can't figure out his gifts, he can't figure out his passions, and he just kind of flounders around, and they say, we don't know what to do with you because, you can't figure it out. So, that is where it gives it a very basic idea of how things work. But, when he comes in and when we come in, we can pick up all of these other things that we wanted to do, we wanted to experience, we wanted to have as part of us. And so, as we're working through that and as we're looking through those things, it's really about having an understanding that sometimes when we come in, we have those, but we also, when we have a memory of a past life, and you'll see he has some of those in this movie, or experiences, I shouldn't say they're past lives, but experiences that when we get a connection to a past life, like Dan, you said that you had, that time where you were a carpenter and the suicide and all of that, that when we have those, it's about looking at, okay, what is that showing me? So maybe, for instance, for you, it was about showing you that, that you had a suicide was happening around you. Maybe it was about hard work will get you through. Maybe it is about don't put all of your life into work. All of those different things that can tap into that. So for me, I've had past life, I get flashes where I was with a good friend of mine, and even though she's physically older than me, she acts about 20 years younger than me. And so when I'm with her, all of a sudden I have this flash and I'm like, you are my mom. And she goes, why do you think I've always called you kiddo? And it's so weird, and no one else calls me that, and I met her probably 5 or 6 years ago, but we just instantly connected. And so she even says that, like she was even feeling that, we have this kind of interesting mother-daughter relationship, even though we only met 5 years ago. and she's not old enough to be my mom. But we have that experience because we were meant to meet. And so to me, that showed me, hey, you do know her. This is that energy you get because I kept feeling this really nurturing energy from her. And so that's what I get from her. And I had another flash of a lifetime where I was dating someone and I had this flash of, well, he left. And I was like, oh, and I connected that to we were going through a really tough time. And it was like, so I was flashing back to that lifetime where he left because he had to, because of a war. And so so it was like, okay, does he have to leave? Is he gonna leave? Are we gonna stay? It was all that energy was coming back out again. And so there's a lot of, so when you get those flashes or you get those past lives, it's about digging into why is that showing through? Maybe it's to show you karma. Maybe it's to show you an experience. Maybe it's to say, hey, you were an amazing piano player. Like you might be horrible now, but keep playing because that part of you that had that, like, loves that. That aspect of you is going to say, I just want to play my heart out when you find it soothing. So really kind of dig into those things. Does that help everyone kind of understand from that perspective?
Yeah, I think my biggest question is that because you had these flashbacks, are you supposed to hear that or are you supposed to just acknowledge it? Because I'm thinking about my hearing impairment, and you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about,
Hmm.
you know, that it felt like I needed to hear it.
Hmm.
So I guess that's my question.
Yeah. So for everyone, it's different. For you, it was about you need to be willing to hear everything. So that was kind of or what I took as your takeaway because of, I know we tapped into some of um, your past lives and experiences. But for other people, it could be different. Someone could have a similar thing and they're hearing too much, like they're not speaking enough. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of suppression, especially if you look back over history, especially if you're, um, women were very suppressed. And a man now could have very well likely was a woman in another lifetime. So they might have felt that same suppression. So a lot of times you have to look at, okay, what is it that maybe is just a misalignment for you? So maybe for some people, it's all about voice. Like you need to have a voice. And a way to kind of see where you're leaning is look at the colors you wear. Look at the colors you like to decorate with. So, I know people that, they love blue. All they wear are navy blue. Their house is decorated in blue. And I'm like, it's like, okay, well, you got any other shades of blue? Well, I also know their throat chakra is a little bit lax. So they're surrounding themselves because colors have vibration to help that. And so they most likely have had past lives where they haven't had a voice and haven't been able to use their voice or were suppressed. People that always have green around them or really lean into green, a lot of times it's their heart chakras a little more closed off. They're trying to really open that up and surround themselves with that. So you can, if it's purple a lot, usually it's the crown chakra. So you might notice you go through stages, and sometimes you could say, well, that's what's popular right now. If you walk in to buy clothes, sometimes, or at least, I'll use men as an example. Like I walk into the men's department, I'm like, it's all blue. Like I think that's all men wear blue shirts because that's all I see. So, there's that, but it's like, okay, what do you enjoy wearing? Women have more of a color wheel when they walk into a store. But it's what do you what colors do you tend towards? Will really say a lot about, what chakra maybe or what energy is there. And where that is. So, but yeah.
Confession, I am wearing blue today.
Are you? Oh, see, you were probably one of 100 blue shirts in the store.
Totally me.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's all about kind of what you connect with. But when you think about those lives or when those lives come up, and there's a couple really good regression recordings. One is by Brian Weiss. You can get it through Hay House, and the other one is Sandra Taylor has a pretty good regression. She's got a pretty good book on regression too. I took a class from her last year, and she's got a download that you can get. They're really good at kind of slowly walking you into them and to see, and then like Dan said earlier, Dolores Cannon has some, if you find someone that does QHHT, you can have really amazing in-person regression and really tap into that as well. So those are just kind of a couple of resources that you could lean into. So yeah. That answer that? Any other thoughts on past lives or other topics?
Do we stay as human form always in past lives?
So my belief is we've been in a lot of different forms. I've done a lot of research into soul origins because I knew that when they would say, oh, you're Palladian, and I'm like, well, it seems like the whole world's Palladian, or oh, you're Syrian. It's like, where did your soul originate from? Because very few, if any, originated from Earth because it's so dense and it's one of the harder planets to be a part of. But we kind of have all these origins kind of outside in other galaxies and planets. And so I did a lot of digging into that to see, and I really haven't gotten an answer, I will say, as to what my origins are, but I know I've been on Earth a lot. I'm very earthbound and almost seabound, I would say. I'm very water connected. But so my belief structure is that we've had lives outside of Earth, then we come into Earth, and I think we've had lifetimes as many different things. Maybe we wanted to be a tree, maybe we wanted to be animals when we kind of worked our way up into human form, and but some I think have just popped into human form. But I also think that most of us will go back into another human form or another physical form. So maybe I do know there are some people that have said, I'm not coming back to Earth. You guys can figure it out. I'm out of here. And I think there's others that are like, yeah, sign me up for another human lifetime. Like I'm ready to go. But then I also look at, I had this thought, a family member of mine has a dog, and that dog is human. I swear to God, she's been human before. And I wonder, I was like, you've been human before. And it was like, she was like, I just wanted to come in and live a really nice life. I wanted to, help this new family grow and experience things. And I came in at a certain time and I'll leave when they're, ready to kind of take the next steps in their life. Um, so I know you'll hear some things that some people say, no, once you get to the human level, you're always going to stay at the human level. My kind of belief is that there is no black and white when it comes to this. And so if you want to come back next time as, you know, like I always say, my sister's cat, it's the bougiest, happiest, most pampered cat in the world. Like, maybe that's what you want to come back as. So give it a try. I don't think I'd ever want to come back as a rock. I think it'd be very boring, but maybe you need a lifetime where you're just a little bored. And then you go, okay, I'm gonna leave. And then, like this rock is just gonna be here. But you were gonna happen to be in a rock for a while. So yeah.
And so it's possible to be inanimate?
I believe so.
What?
I believe everything has energy to it. So the chairs we're all sitting in, this desk that's here, I believe it has a sense of energy because we had to use things to make it, which came from, most of them natural occurring. So, this wood of the desk, was a tree at one point. The metal on my chair was a metal alloy in the ground. And I believe all those things have energy. It's the same way crystals do. We say, oh, crystals have energy and they'll split if they get too much energy or they'll like disappear for a while. I don't know if you guys have that, but stones will just disappear in my house. And I'm like, where did that go? I know it was here. And then all of a sudden it'll show back up in a really random spot. So yeah, so I think everything has energy. Is it soul energy? Wouldn't go that far with my belief, but I think it's still an energy that's associated with source, the universe, God, earth, there's still that connection. Um, and you look at plants and animals that are all living and breathing. And there's a really good documentary. It used to be on Prime. I don't know if it's there anymore, but it was called, oh, what was that called? It was about how all of the, and if I remember it, I will send it over to you guys, but it was about how all of the tree roots across the entire world, how they're all connected and they will send nutrients to who needs it.
Mhm.
They take care of their saplings that are there. They work to push out invasive species. It was a really, really good, it was an amazing, I'll say, documentary that kind of explains that. And then it got down to, the fungi level. There's also a good one called Fantastic Fungi about how they
Mhm.
fungus. If you've watched that one, Michelle, to clean up oil
Yes.
spills, which I was like, oh my gosh, that blew my mind. But yeah, so I do believe that even inanimate have some type of energy, but I don't think a soul is in a doorknob, or I hope it's not, because that'd be a really sad place to be. So maybe popped in and looked at it and hung with it for a while, and it's like, okay, I'm moving on. But you never know. But it does have energy. Hmm. Yeah. What other?
And
Yeah.
um, is there when you're coming in back, when you're going into a next life, you don't have a choice whether it's going to be bougie um, or a desolate existence,
I
do
I
you?
I think you do. I think you kind of
Oh,
have
yeah.
control over all that. Yeah. You may come in and say, I want a really bougie, cushy life. Because I want to experience what it is to have everything given to me. Or maybe you say, I had that life now and I want to work for what I have. You want those different experiences. But I think that you choose those. There are some times where maybe your higher self is saying, you know what, we need to push you a little bit into more of this life or have these experiences. It doesn't mean you can't get down here and say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But I do think that, there are other forces kind of helping you get to where you need to go and that you have that understanding of that. Um, so yeah, but I also see as, when you get back to, source, universal energy, God, whatever term you want to use, that everything up there is all knowing and all loving. So even if we had more of a difficult experience here, we also have experienced the opposite, or we've seen it. We've been a guide for another soul. We're seeing all these other things. So I don't think we have as much of, no, I'm absolutely not going to do that. Even though we can say, I'm never coming back with this person in another lifetime because they're going to have to clear up their karma they created with that person, we might go back and go, okay, I'll help you out again. Like I had a good relationship with him. We can solve this. We can fix this. Um, so yeah, I think it's totally up to the soul and the energy. But I do believe that the karma you have with you or outstanding contracts that maybe are there may kind of make you lean or push in one direction or the other.
And so do you have to, does the soul work for a balance, whether you had maybe a cushy life into
Yeah.
something that is a very struggling time for an organism?
I, you know, I would assume so, but I don't know for sure. I have read souls where one person that I worked with, I finally looked at her, I said, when are you going to figure this out? You're doing this over and over and over again. Like she just had hard life after hard life because she wasn't willing to finally stand up for herself and use her voice and say, no, this is what I want to do. I'm not going to follow what my dad told me to do, and then my husband told me to do, and everyone else told me to do. And so I think she was kind of caught in that cycle where it's like, okay, how are you going to get out of it? Um, so yeah, I think there's that, but I don't necessarily, but then I also read someone who they had very, very cushy lives. And it was like, you're going to have to start doing your work. Like, if you want to feel aligned and you don't want to be, you have all the material things, but you're unfulfilled as a soul, you're gonna have to start working on this stuff and you're gonna have to start giving back and helping others and using your resources to, support others. And he was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, and I could see that as a pattern in lifetimes. Yeah, he was just like, no, I'm good. I'm happy. I got everything I need, everything I could ever want. And it was like he needed to work through that. Um, and I looked at as okay, if that's what the soul's looking for. But I also think that probably was karma that was pulled with him. There was lifetimes, but once he got back to source, we're all loving, we're all knowing, we have all of that love that's up there. And so, it was just something when he separated a little bit into that, carnation, that maybe he had all those memories and thoughts of those other lifetimes. So,
Mm.
yeah. But just being willing to talk to me was a big step in the right direction, you know? I'm like, you're getting there, Because some people would be like, I'm not going to go to a channeler or psychic. Like, no, I'm good. They wouldn't believe in that. So I'm like, okay, there's something that's making you go, maybe I need to talk to her.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so I would say, for each of you, try past life regression. You can do a meditation that you can, from either the three that I recommended, or you can go online and find others if there's another one that really calls to you, or work with a hypnotherapist that can do uh, a regression for you. But it's interesting to see what comes, and don't overanalyze it, but lightly analyze it to go, what is this? And some easy ways that I will do that, if I'm stuck on something before I go to bed, I'll tell my guides and my higher self, hey, I need an answer on this. Can you give me some clarity around this lifetime? And I'll say I need it as soon as I wake up in the morning. And as soon as I wake up in the morning, I'll have some clarity before my brain even starts working and analyzing it. And it just that first thing, then I'll go, oh, and then I sit with that. And sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. But the longer I just sit with that, it'll usually come through as to what the point of that was. So,
Mm.
mhm.
And is there a um so if a soul has been going through a rough time, I mean really, like bad or abusive, um that's free will from maybe somebody else, from some other inanimate. So how does that soul deal with that?
Yeah. So, when there is something negative towards a soul that from not another soul, like you're saying, like a rock fell down on their foot and broke their foot kind of thing.
Oh, I'm thinking like an animal was abused by a human.
Yeah. Well, to me, animals have souls. So that
Hmm.
animal had that experience. And sometimes you can look at, was that contractual? Was that something that animal wanted to experience? Was it free will, where the human did that against the animal because it didn't view it as a living being, that it was, it viewed it as just a commodity. And so, depending upon what the experience was around it, is going to dictate how it what the experience what they're both going to leave this lifetime with that experience is. So I think it's all very dependent upon each individual circumstance. Was the human just playing the part for the animal? Was the animal there so that the human would have to maybe think about that someday, how it treated the animal? Or was it free life decisions and it created some type of karma out of it? And that is hard to, you know, that is hard to know unless it's on an individual experience. But whatever it is, whether they each played their part or not, it's still an experience they both had. And so that will still kind of go into their energy knowledge bank of, oh, I experienced that. Okay, I'm ready to move on to the next. Because in Earth there is so much separation. So when you hear a lot of other channeled messages from like the Pleiadians or the Arcturians or non-Earth connected beings so much, they'll always talk about, well, we're all one. Well, we're all about love. Well, we need to do these things in this way because this is how we do it. Well, Earth is one of the few planets with separation, with free will, where there is duality. A lot of planets, they don't have duality. There's not male and female, it's just one. There isn't black and white. There isn't good and bad. There isn't, it's all just one. And
Mhm.
so here we have to look at, okay, if that is the message, and yes, we are all one, but Earth hasn't gotten to that dimension where we've gotten past that, but we still need to think that way. We still need to process that way. When they say, treat others as you want to be treated, or love thy neighbor as yourself, or, input whatever phrase you want, there is that, that is the construct of it, but Earth does have all of this separation. So how can we work among separation and duality, but still see it as one? Like I can look at each of you on this call and I see that our souls are all from the same energy field, but it's the human form that has created the separation. And then it's our backgrounds that have created separation, our looks, our gender, our all of these things. But it's not a negative. It's just how we're experiencing the earth realm. It's all about, but what hurts me hurts you. If I was to get on here and say something about how horrible everyone is, you guys would be hurt, but that's going to hurt me as well. Even the person saying it, I may not recognize it, but it's still going to have that same thought. And that's why I talk a lot with, well, this is my belief, or this is what I think, or I've been taught, because I don't want to put my beliefs or thoughts on you. I want to give you my knowledge and let you guys kind of make your own deciphers and have these discussions. That's why I love this Tuesday group to say, what is on your mind? Because I learn a lot. There's some weeks where I'm like, man, I didn't know that, so I'm even learning and figuring stuff out. So, but yeah, this has been a fun topic. What else are you guys thinking about with past lives? Anything else popping up for you?
I'm just digesting it. Um, yeah, but I did learn something from you just now. I didn't realize that this planet was the only one that had duality. So
Yeah.
that was new to me.
Yeah, one of the few. I won't say only, but one of the few that have
Okay.
duality. Yeah, yeah. I was I was co-authoring a book that actually is out on Kindle now. It's not out in paperback yet. With the Near Death Institute about close contact. And so I channeled for it. And so if you guys are interested, feel free to, check it out. But it was interesting when I channeled, they had said, you can get all of this knowledge from, other galactic beings, other galactic energies, but it's about understanding how does it apply to the principles of Earth. Earth has many laws. Earth has the law, as everyone knows, of gravity. We have the law of attraction. We have the law of, I don't know, I was not a big science person, but you guys get, you get the gist of it. And they said, it's great to understand what other places do, but you have to also understand how does that apply to us. And they gave a really great example of, you can take someone who lives in the Sahara Desert and you can take someone that lives in the Arctic. Well, if you say teach me exactly what I need to do to survive, they're both going to die, because the person in the Arctic is going to tell the person in the desert, you need to, really bundle up. You need to get shelter that's warm, build a fire, really make sure you're protecting yourself from the wind. And they're going to go, and if someone in the desert does that, well, they're going to be dead in an hour, and vice versa. They're going to tell the person, stay out of the sun, get in the breeze so you can feel air, go find water, all these things that are different. And that really hit home for me. I was like, wow, like they'd use that. And I was like but that's how they were explaining. And there's a whole chapter that I wrote for the book, but that's how they were really explaining it to me as you have to take what comes and see how does it apply. And I think that's a good thing for everyone else, even us as individuals. Take what someone gives you or take the knowledge you're given. Even, I think I've done sessions for pretty much all of you on the call here and take the information that the druids are giving you and say, how can I apply this? How does this apply? How does this work within my life? Because what works for me might be different for someone else, but the principles are all the same. Because the principles of someone living in the desert and in the Arctic is you still need to protect yourself from the elements, stay warm or cool, maintain a constant body temperature, and find food. I mean that's the principles, it's that are there. So they just have to do it in very different ways. So yeah, so that is so I'd say for anything you guys come across, read, hear, use your own discernment and question it and say, how does that fit? And maybe you're gonna go, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Maybe you might go, I need to think about that. But it's cool. So and then when you want to question something, bring it back to the Tuesday call and we can talk about it and all we can all learn more from it. So any other thoughts you guys have or topics or questions?
Just any thoughts around the law of attraction? I know you mentioned it earlier, but I think
Ooh,
it's undeniable. But just what are your perspective on it?
yeah. Oh, I just watched a whole astrology talk today about manifestation using astrology chart. So it was actually written down as one of my topics, Dan. So thank you for bringing that up. So my belief on, I know the law of attraction and Abraham Hicks has done a great job at getting it more out into the knowledge of everyone. I always take it a step further and I look at manifestation as an alignment. Are you aligned to what you want to bring into your life or what is coming into your life? And if you're aligned, you're already co-creating and manifesting without really putting this massive energy into it. So, for instance, when things are going well in your life, you're feeling really positive, you're feeling really happy, you're saying, yeah, I want to work towards, changing careers, or I want to work towards, taking a big vacation or increasing my income so that I can, retire early or put my kids through school or whatever it is. And so I really look at it as how can you really align your energy to your purpose, to your path, and allow the universe to give you what you need. So we can always say, oh, I hate my job. I wish I wasn't there. I want to change that. But it's saying, okay, if that's not aligned to you, but you can't get out of it, you can't, every application you send out gets a no thanks or gets ghosted, or, you go to these interviews and it falls off. It's like, okay, if this isn't, if this the energy you're aligned to, how can you shift your energy? And maybe that's just simply saying, I am grateful that I get a paycheck every week from this job, and you don't put your focus on how much you dislike it. And you start envisioning and aligning to a job where you have more income or flexibility or different hours or something different. Or maybe it's that you just want a different coworker. You're like, I just need to align. So then it's about looking at what is that experience? And I'll use the coworker as an example. What is that coworker mirroring to you? And then whatever it's mirroring to you, it's like, what do I need to learn from that? So maybe they constantly annoy you. It's like, okay, what inside me is annoying me? And maybe you're like, you know what? I feel insecure when I'm here because I have to leave for lunch every day to do something for my, elderly neighbor when everyone else stays and they keep working. So I'm annoyed with myself that I do that, but they've never voiced that. So maybe they're reflecting something back to you. And it's really about, seeing, so if you can shift that in yourself, all of a sudden the coworker is not gonna annoy you anymore. And maybe you're not gonna be their best friend, but you can maybe still coexist. And then you can realign to something different. So I always say it's good with manifestation to, I have a journal. I always start my year with what do I want? What am I looking for? I'm always envisioning the next thing. I talk in terms of the present. So I always say, I have a new car or I have I'm going on a trip to, you know, Europe, wherever, I always talk in those terms like it's already part of my energy. And that allows for me to align to that energy to then be able to go there. And remember, even your thoughts play a part in your energy. So even if you think, oh, I have no money, that's a sense of lack. You're bringing lack to you. If you say, I am abundant in paying this grocery bill, even if you might be very, have money, concerns in other ways, or you're questioning, can I pay for this or that? But if you just saying, I'm abundant in paying the grocery bill as you're swiping your debit card or you're giving them cash, that is changing the energy of that instead of going, oh gosh, the groceries were $32.86, and I know I've got the electric bill coming and that's going to be this. That's creating all of this fear. And so when we can shift the fear out of our lives and shift ourselves into action and living in our alignment, that's when my belief that true manifestation does come. When we're aligned to it, the universe will just throw it in our laps and will just give us exactly what we need. Does that help you, Dan?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So, people will say to me then, well, I want to manifest winning the lottery. And I'm like, do you want to manifest winning is it the lottery you want to win or is it abundance you want? And 99% of the time, it's abundance. And so we always have to talk about, okay, what's abundant to you? Is abundant to you having, $100 million in the bank? Sure, but is abundant to you not being able to think about always have plenty of money there where you don't have to think about, what trips you want to take, what you want to purchase, what you want to do. You can just continue a lifestyle that really calls to you, where you're still maybe, um, you still want to, you always wanted to help people. You wanted to start a food bank or a food kitchen or, tutor children after school or something. If you can still do that and still feel this abundance, maybe it's not the lottery you need to win. Maybe it's about saying to the universe, I just need to feel abundant. So I always tell people too, don't put a particular action on it. Talk about the energy around it. I want to feel abundant so that I can, take you know, a, a round the world cruise once a year with my spouse. Whatever, I could not do that because I would be sick the whole time because I get motion sick. But for one of you guys, you might go, that is a dream. That is what I want to do. So put the energy around it of I just want to be abundant enough to not have to worry about this and to just be able to do these things, to have these experiences and see these other places or, fill in the blank with whatever your is. But just remember, fear, lack, anger, hatred, they all pull us back. They all suck our energy back in, and that's where we start to put up these walls, and it doesn't allow for just that constant flow of energy to kind of come through. And if something kind of goes wrong, if you're like, ooh, not what I was looking for, really work on, just really kind of saying, okay, what state was I in? What did I learn? And then really work to shift that energy again. So, any other questions or thoughts?
One quick question. I know we're running out of time, but who's your favorite channel?
Oh, who is my favorite channel? That's a big question. I I listen to a lot of them, I will say. I listen to Bashar. I listen to not so much Abraham Hicks. I kind of bop around. The latest I've been listening to is I know a lot of amazing channels that maybe don't have the popularity that others do. But lately I've been listening to Amy Sarkowski has some great ones. I also have been listening to Valerie Wood has some good channel messages out there. I actually know both of them personally, but it's funny. I still actually go to their stuff and read it, even though, I'll see like, ooh, Amy released another podcast. Let me go see what's out there. So yeah, so that Yeah, I say go with what calls to you because mine changes from day to day. I right now I'm reading a Dolores Cannon book, Horns of the Goddess, which is really, really good. It's actually all about druids. And I did not know that until I started reading it. But yeah, I say go to what calls to you, where you're at, and just kind of let it flow. So there are a few that I do listen to. So all right. Any other questions or thoughts or things that are popping up for you guys right now? No? All right. Well, I want to thank you guys all for joining. This was a great discussion. I feel like all I did was talk though. So but that's okay. I'm glad I was able to answer. But it was awesome having you guys on. As a reminder, our next one will be, it's really small, Tuesday, October 7th, same time. So I hope you guys can all join us and pop in. You never know what will come through or who will be on or what topics will come up. And I've always got a few, and that is I think that's around a moon. A new fall. Maybe I'll have to look because the solstice will have already passed by then. Or excuse me, the equinox will have already passed by then. But yeah, with that, I want to thank you guys so much for popping on. Have a wonderful day and hope to see all of you guys soon.
Okay.